Welcome to PENSARE Basketball. The Toronto Raptors are 20-14. They are top four in the East. They are on pace to beat the preseason Vegas over-under by 13 wins. They are one of the 8 youngest teams in the league. They have an awesome defense that is truly inspiring. They have the best positive vibes energy this side of San Antonio and OKC, and have had a relatively amazing season from their freshly inked max player, who just made history, by the way, in a wonderful comeback win against the Golden State Warriors, which was followed by a wonderful comeback win against the Orlando Magic. And people are not happy. And look, we had a 3-hour episode yesterday on the post game live. And I think it's weird to me when I woke up this morning realizing, wait a second, did I just witness 2 of the better comeback wins in Raptors history? And yet most of the post game chatter around Reddit, X has been largely negative. What is going on? So, in this episode, I'm going to explain loss aversion, status preservation, toxic fandom, the Diderot effect, and why winning the championship in 2019 was the best and worst thing the Toronto Raptors ever did for their fan base. Please give this video a like. We don't do morning lives very often. We are night people, but I am up early for the panel on Player's Choice. Shout outs to Player's Choice. I will be on there at 11. So if you got some time today, definitely come check us out on the panel. We'll be talking about a lot of stuff today that might be interesting to you. But if you want a nice little, positive thing to start the morning out, I think most of us can probably agree that I don't necessarily identify as an influencer, but I definitely do like to think myself as a thought leader within basketball. Yesterday, Vince came up here and he said, "Why don't you do digest videos? Like, why don't you do Raptors digest type of videos?" And I was just like, hell no, because that's not uniquely me. What is uniquely me is trying to find new things to talk about that I don't think anyone else can talk about, will talk about. I like to be early to things. Some people think it's because I have a big ego, but for real, like I just want to be contributing something new to basketball. Consider me Magellan in that sense. And so whether that be, being the person who initially pioneers, the Scottie Barnes is going to be an all-star, the face of the league type of bullshit a year before Darko did, whether it be, the person who's early in terms of saying the Raptors are going to be borderline 50-win team. I want to be early on things, and I want to be early in explaining to you why this is happening so that maybe the rest of your year watching the Raptors doesn't have to be so intrinsically miserable, and you can just be happy. So let's first start out by saying that I am happy. I am happy. I get to watch my favorite player play every single night on a team that I cover. I get to make a decent living covering the team that I love more than any other team in professional sports. I'm a happy person. I love Jamal Shed. I love Jacoby Walter. I love CMB. I love Jonathan Mobo. I love Brandon Ingram. There's a lot to love on this team. Am I thrilled about the Jakob Poeltl contract? Does it sometimes keep me up at night? Would I talk about it if I had a therapy session right now? Probably, but there's probably a reason why those negative things about this team, i.e., the botched lottery picks, the Grady pick, the RJ contract pending, the lack of center, IQ's contract, etc., why these are such prevailing thoughts. Like almost like even after a 25-23 game, with 10 assists, where Scottie Barnes just dominates the game, the prevailing sentiment around Reddit is, well, he's not really a championship number one. He's not really a championship number one. When did Raptor fans start talking about championship number ones? How many championships do we have? Since when did we become the Lakers fans? So let's talk about this. And I actually feel that if you take the time, and this is not going to be a super long live because it can't be, because it's a morning live. I think if you take the time to really listen to what I'm about to say, I promise you I will not waste your time with chatter. This is going to be a 25-minute live maximum, no callers, no fluff. If you take the time to figure this out, if you hear me out, you are going to have a better life from this day on. Mark this day on your calendar, December 30th. December 30th till the rest of your life, when you end up in a tombstone, like under a tombstone in a casket, you will have a better life if you take what I'm about to say and actually apply it to your day-to-day life. So let's start with Diderot Effect. What is the Diderot Effect? Who is Denis Diderot? Denis Diderot was an 18th century French philosopher. He wrote about how receiving a luxurious scarlet robe, first of all, founder of the encyclopedia, very influential in his time, had a lot of admirers, including kings, queens, princes, and princesses, and lived a very modest life. Like many philosophers of his time, Diderot was not objectively wealthy at the time. And yet there was a purchase of his library, which flooded wealth into his life. And with that wealth, he ended up buying a luxurious scarlet robe. And this would become the founding of the Diderot effect going forward. And this luxurious item that came into his life became the downfall of his entire life. Teacher Mike saying, "Let me just say that thumbnail is epic." First of all, shout outs to Teacher Mike. Should have given you credit on the offset. That picture of me in the thumbnail is actually a piece of artwork by Teacher Mike. So shout outs to Teacher Mike. Check out his Raptors t-shirts. He's really awesome with some of the stuff that he does. So this became the beginning of the end for him because once he had this wonderful, luxurious, kingly robe, like one of the kings, he could no longer look around at the rest of his life and the rest of his possessions. If you want to think about it like something that you could apply to, because you may not be a influential French philosopher who receives a $50,000 endowment or payment from a king or a queen, you could look at it like buying your latest iPhone, or you could look at it as, I don't know, renovating your kitchen. Once you, or buying a Peloton bike, once you purchase one luxury item, it's very difficult to then preserve the rest of your life as not being luxury items, right? So you buy a luxury car, but you have a shitty phone, right? Or you have a luxury phone, but you have a shitty car. One of these things doesn't match the other thing because you're trying to chase an aesthetic. And I think that that's a really good place to start with the Diderot effect. So the new robe basically made his other possessions feel cheap and out of place by comparison. And this triggered a chain reaction of upgrades. And these upgrades included replacing furniture, belongings, everything that didn't match the robe. And the Diderot effect basically describes how one upgrade creates dissatisfaction with everything that came before and ultimately everything that comes after. Applied broadly, it explains how new standards turn contentment into chronic dissatisfaction. Does this sound like somebody you know? Does this sound like a Raptor fan in your life? See, when the Toronto Raptors won a championship, they were a long shot fourth odds favorite to win a championship. There was no dynasty brewing. Kawhi was always going to leave. But by some divine miracle, Kawhi makes a shot against Philadelphia and the Raptors win the basketball game. They win against Philly. Their most healthy, most formidable, most dominant foe. That team included Ben Simmons, Jimmy Butler, and Joel Embiid, Tobias Harris. It included JJ Redick. It included a lot of really good players. And then you go up against Milwaukee and you somehow, you're down 2-0 and Raptor fans are like, "Oh, here we go again. We the North, Raptors again." But somehow Kawhi puts on his cape and Fred VanVleet starts to shoot again and you win that series too. And then you go to the finals and you're like, "Well, it's nice that we got here, but we probably aren't going to win." And then Kevin Durant gets injured, Klay Thompson gets injured, and the Raptors win a championship. And everything from that day on is chronic dissatisfaction. It's dissatisfaction with trade results. It's dissatisfaction with lottery picks. It's dissatisfaction with management. It's dissatisfaction with everything. And I think, it's fair to say that the Raptors' golden age of scouting and development probably was about 12 years ago, 11 years ago, 10 years ago. Pascal Siakams are not going to walk in through the door. But does that mean that every single 20 overall pick that doesn't turn into OG and Pascal is a disappointment? Does it mean that when you pick 20 that you must pick the absolute best player and it cannot be that player can never be worse than the guy who's 21st, 22nd, 23rd, 24th? What if you pick a really awesome player at 19? Shout out to Jacoby Walter. But the guy who's 24 ends up being slightly better. Is that like bad? Should we not judge Jacoby Walter against the average 19th overall pick versus every single pick picked after? Because I'll tell you right now, the odds of the 19th player that you pick, even if you're a great scouting department, being better than every single player picked after him are less than 2%. If you play the math out, it's less than 2%, which means if you use that as the barometer for your happiness, then you are a 98% likely bet to be unhappy. What about point guards? The Toronto Raptors had a great point guard spearheading the whole thing. That was Kyle Lowry. Every point guard that follows Kyle Lowry's lead is going to be pathetic by result, by comparison. But is Manon Quickly really as bad as some people think he is? Hell no, he's not. Is Davion Mitchell as bad as some people thought he was last year, myself included? No, he's not. He's a perfectly serviceable, but not starting level, not $12 million a year player. Is Jamal Shed the next Kyle Lowry? Who knows? Time will tell. Certainly. Time will tell. He's a better three-point shooter at the same age, if you want my honest opinion. But does Jamal Shed have to become Kyle Lowry for Jamal Shed to be anything other than a disappointment? No. Jamal Shed is phenomenal. He is awesome. And he is such a wonderful player to root for. Does Scottie Barnes have to turn into Kawhi Leonard for you to satisfy your quota of that's a championship number one? Well, I think Kawhi Leonard put up one of the 5 greatest playoff runs in NBA history. So if you're waiting for Scottie Barnes to eclipse that, then you might be crazy. But you're also, once again, signing up for a 98% dissatisfaction situation. Baba G Cut said, Pen, are you on the panel today? Yes, I am. I am on the panel today. Shout outs to Player's Choice. I will be there. Maybe you will be there. Maybe somebody else will be there. Maybe somebody will check out their first panel episode today. So effectively, that's what it goes to. So how does the Diderot effect tie into the Raptors? Let me explain. The Diderot effect effectively was how acquiring one new standard makes everything else that came before and came after feel inadequate. For the Raptors, the 2019 championship became a new baseline, not the peak. Every roster, season, and decision is subconsciously compared to this Kawhi-led title team. So a young, overachieving 20-14 team doesn't feel like progress because it doesn't match the aesthetic dominance or so-called certainty of 2019. But I want to remind you that 2019 was nothing certain at all. You were definitely going to lose Kawhi. The whole thing was absolutely crumbling. You were 100% about you were on the precipice of, a Kyle Lowry inevitable decline, Marc Gasol inevitable decline. And so maybe you need to ask yourself right now, if Scottie Barnes was 29 years old right now, and RJ Barrett was like 30, 31, and Brandon Ingram was like 32, 33, and all these young players were absolutely like right at their peak. Are you not one of the best teams in the Eastern Conference right now? Are you like, we're not one of the 2 teams in the East that are coming out of the East? Probably. But you're not there right now. You're a young team. And you have to judge this team as a young team. But I hear you. I don't care about the young team. We won a championship. See what I mean? It's kind of stupid. It's kind of like if you win the lottery. Now, I don't share this very often, but it's a nice little bar note, In 2008, 2009, in 2009, there was a 649 lottery that was like $48 million. Okay. I never played the lottery. I don't like playing the lottery because I thought it was for idiots. Shout outs to you if you played the lottery. I don't. Because I don't believe that paying $2 for an expected value of 20 cents is good use of my money. But this one time, I had a coworker who convinced me to go in on the lottery. And he said, Rob, it's $48 million. This is life-changing money. Let's buy 1 ticket apiece. I'll buy 3 tickets. And I said no. But he bought me a ticket anyway. So shout outs to him. So he bought me a ticket. His name is Max. And he bought me a ticket. And it just so happened that we had to decide whether we wanted to go splits or we wanted to split even. And I just thought, it's so complicated to try and split 48 million. Even the 1 in a million chance that I actually win, I want to keep my ticket. Then I also thought to myself in that moment, what if one of the other tickets wins? Wouldn't I feel so stupid that I basically cost myself like, I don't know, $18 million, $17, $16 million? That would feel so stupid. But inevitably, I decided, you know what? No, I don't want to go through the legal battles. He's signing the tickets. I have to trust somebody to give me 16 million. Just give me my ticket. Just give me my ticket. Guess what? It kind of won. not the 48 million, but I think it was like 5 numbers. And this resulted in a $5,000 payout, of which I split with the other people, by the way, because it wasn't my idea to buy a ticket and I didn't feel right taking the whole amount. So we split the amount. It was like $1,700 or $1,800. And do you know what happened? Well, there's one of two, three doors that could have gone down. Door number one is I now play the lottery every single week, and I'm dissatisfied every single time I don't win $5,000. And now I'm just a really sad, miserable, sad sack of shit who's nearly, 40 years old, who's just looking back on that time that I won $5,000 once. Or, and this is the door that I took, I never touched a lottery ticket again because I still know the math and it's stupid to expect to win ever again. So I didn't buy a robe. Do you know what I actually bought? I bought a Sony XLR TV, sorry, XBR TV. It was a 40-inch flat screen. I realized that some of you now are watching in 2025 and you are able to buy a 40-inch flat screen for $12. But back then it was pretty expensive. And so I bought that and I ended up buying something else as well. And that was pretty much how I used the money. And that was it. That was it. Like I was like, this is free money. It's nice, whatever. And that's it. Never touched lottery tickets again. Didn't become a degenerate gambler because I didn't suddenly expect to win. Because unlike a lot of people, I don't constantly compare every success to past success. I don't anchor every single thing to past success. But that doesn't mean I'm immune to the Diderot effect because I am a human being. So for instance, I think that going to the gym 4 times a week is pretty cool. I think going from being able to bench 120 pounds to going all the way to being able to bench now almost 200 pounds is pretty good. But every time I bench 200 pounds and I feel happy, I'm reminded that at one point in my heyday, I think it was like 2020, I was able to bench 240. And it pushes me, but it also gives me a little bit of sadness that I'm not as strong as I used to be. And I wonder if this is part of why people age so miserably. So going back to the Raptors, right? The problem isn't losing, right? It's that the current production violates the identity that fans adopted after winning. So the key idea here is the Raptors championship didn't satisfy fans. It upgraded their expectations permanently. But is that fair? Is it fair? Kawhi Leonard ain't walking through the door anymore. He's not here. Kyle Lowry's not here. Not a single player on this team contributed to that championship. So why is this team held to the standard of that team? Other than the fact that both teams played in Toronto, they have nothing in common. These are totally different teams. They're totally different timelines. They've been assembled in totally different ways. Case in point, right now, your 3 best players are all former top 5 picks. That team did not have a single lottery pick. What's the point? So, identity shift. We went from a scrappy underdog to we're supposed to win. Scrappy underdog is a happy place to be, man. OKC fans are kind of in that place right now where they're just still a scrappy underdog. They still think we the South. You know what I mean? Like that idea of we're not supposed to win, nobody expects us to win, but we're going up against the odds. That's a beautiful place to be. It's a beautiful place to be to have a lottery ticket and have no expectation of winning and then to win anyway. That's a beautiful thing. It's a miserable place to be to go to a casino with $200, expect to walk away with 1,000. I promise you, I watched my mom go to Atlantic City, and you know what my mom would do? She would have $20, and this is probably why I don't gamble. She would have $20, and she said, "This is fun money. $20. This is what I can afford to lose, and I expect to lose it. If I win something, it'll be cool." One time she went to Atlantic City, she turned her $20 into $0. Second time she went to Atlantic City, she turned her $20 into $0. The third time, she turned her $20 into $45 in quarters, and she was happy. In all situations, you should never gamble expecting to win. And this is kind of the thing with Laker fans, if you think about it. So pre-2019, the Raptors fandom was still built on resilience, development, and moral victories. We cared. We cared that we could win a game. We cared about wins. Today, it doesn't feel like wins are appreciated at all. post 2019, Raptor fandom seems to be redefined around entitlement to relevance and respect. You know what I mean? And I think younger players developing overperforming lineups, fun basketball culture that is truly, truly fun and respectable in a lot of ways. And I know that some people might find offense in what I'm saying. The vibes of this team are better than the vibes of the 2019 team. They're more selfless than the 2019 team. They play more for each other than the 2019 team. The 2019 team still had a malcontent in Kawhi Leonard and a soon to be departing uh, sorry, Kawhi Leonard. I was about to call him Kyle Leonard. Um, like in a lot of ways, at least everyone here is locked into the city. RJ Barrett's like, I want to represent Toronto. I want to represent Canada. You didn't really have a prominent Canadian player on that team. Scottie Barnes is young and certainly has the potential to get to all NBA levels. Brandon Ingram can't stop singing praises of this city. And, Glorilla is always there. Like, man, there's a lot to love about this team. Why the fuck is everyone so mad? Right? Fans no longer evaluate teams by trajectory. They evaluate them by title proximity. And that is a big problem, right? Scottie Barnes is not just some fantastic young player who busts his ass and just made NBA history. He'll never be a championship number one. He'll never be a championship number one. Well, first of all, how many championship number ones are there in the league? 5, 6. Okay, cool. How many players in the league? 450. How many professional basketball players in the world playing at high level leagues? 1,200, 1,300. So unless you are top five among 1,200, we're not happy. That means 25 teams should just be miserable all the time. What if Scottie becomes the type of player in 5 years that is so great, and then at that point, Shea becomes available and he becomes the main piece in a Shea trade? I'm not saying that should happen. I still think Scottie's going to be a championship number one. But let's just say you're one of those people that thinks he can't be. Should his progress be basically deflated or, discounted because he's not Kawhi Leonard overnight? He's 24 years old. When did Kawhi Leonard become Kawhi Leonard that you remember? When did he become the 25 point per game, 30 point per game mega scorer? And by the way, I will remind you, and I know that people didn't talk about it at the time, Scottie Barnes right now is way better defensively than Kawhi Leonard was for the Raptors. Way better. Way better. It's not even close. I promise you, he's so much better. But nobody cares. Nobody cares because he can't hit fadeaways over Joel Embiid, I guess. So the championship hangover and the adaptation. Humans quickly return to emotional baselines after positive events. If you ever want to see this in action, you should watch somebody after the high of winning a lottery ticket, like winning the lottery. People who were broke before winning the lottery will be broke within 6 to 8 months after winning the lottery. People who were unhappy after a major positive life occurrence will be unhappy after 6 months. Your identity doesn't change because some random event happens. Raptor fans have been miserable for a really fucking long time. Winning a championship just added entitlement to their misery. That's just the truth. Okay. The emotional high of 2019 faded, but the expectations didn't. And now there's entitlement attached to the expectations. Wins now feel normal. Losses feel like failures, and surprises feel like temporary or fake, right? A 20 and 14 record with one of the youngest rosters in the league should feel incredible. Instead, it feels kind of suspicious, like the East is weak, teams are resting their players. Look, man, all of this is true. The East is not the West. I get it. A lot of teams have rested players. That's cool. But a win is still a win. If you played any competitive sports, it doesn't matter. A win is still a win. You have to go out and get the win. The Raptors lose to a team that they're supposed to beat. The entire fan base is ready to light Scottie Barnes' jersey on fire. But if they win against the team they're supposed to beat, it's a fake win. So it's almost like until you beat OKC, and even with OKC, I think people would be like, well, OKC is playing their worst basketball right now. It's like nothing can satiate this fan base. You know what I mean? And I think if you're being honest with yourself, 17 and 17 should be like mega progress. 20 and 14 is phenomenal progress. How you got there is a little suspicious, sure. Maybe there's a medium between being miserable all the time and being delusional. Maybe being delusional sounds like, well, it's OKC and us, and we got Mo Bamba, and now we have one of the best centers in the league. Maybe that just sounds stupid, but maybe there is a middle ground between delusion and complete pessimism, which is reality. And the reality is the Raptors are a really fun basketball team that have a lot of young players that have a ton of potential, that work insanely hard, and that Raptor fans should probably be excited about what that can possibly project to, because they've watched a young team that works hard before turn into a title team. That doesn't mean this team has to win a title again. Maybe we'll be talking in 2045 as I'll be gray and, bearded, and hopefully have like old children at that point. And I'll be like, man, 2019, remember that? We won a championship then. That sounds miserable, but there are 30 teams in the league. They all are trying to win championships. You're not supposed to win a championship every single year. 29 teams don't win the championship. I say this all the time. 15 playoff teams every year lose their last game of the season. It's not a failure every single time you don't win a championship. You have to, unless of course you want to be a Knicks fan or a Lakers fan, in which case you can celebrate. You can basically relegate yourself to misery for the rest of your life. So it brings me to the Lakers. Why the Raptor fans are basically becoming what they've hated. Laker fans are famously championship or bust because decades of success has trained them to see anything else as a failure. They got LeBron James, and the first thing they thought was, you'll never be better than Kobe Bryant. It's such a toxic, ridiculous fan base. I absolutely cannot stand Laker fans. Raptor fans are mocked for their mindset until they won once, right? Once one ring created like a mini Lakers mentality, right? If we're not contending, what's the point? Why aren't we tanking or trading for an all-star? Let's trade Scottie for Giannis. But what are you really after, right? Loss aversion. Why fans overreact to imperfection. Loss aversion. Losses hurt more than equivalent gains feel good, right? This is the example of psychology. If I gave you $100 today, you'd be like, wow, that's nice. Rob gave me $100. That's really nice. But if I took $50 out of your account without you knowing about it and you found out about it later, you would probably hate me. And that's because those are equivalent amounts in your mind. Me taking $50 back is almost as bad as me giving you $100. Flip it, and it's way worse. So how much can I possibly take away from you to not cancel out my initial contribution of $100? Probably, unless you're crazy, probably like $20. I could ask for $20 back, and you'd be like, well, he's letting me keep 80. But the minute I ask for 50 back, we're almost even square. Our minds are very loss aversion focused. And I think that this is something that, we need to think about. Fans aren't afraid of losing games. They're afraid of losing the status that 2019 actually gave them. When you go to a general forum or Real GM or any one of these, general discussion places or comment sections on an ESPN video, what you want to be able to say to a Bucks fan or a Knicks fan is, I'm a Raptors fan and I'm better than you. There's a status element that 2019 provided, that all the success provided. Having one of the best front offices in the league, having the best general manager in the league, having this esteemed, brilliant coach who tried boxing and won in a championship setting, having one of the best players in the league. This gave Raptor fans like a very addictive high, and it gave them a sense of presence, status in the NBA community. And right now it feels like Scottie Barnes, who isn't as widely respected as Kawhi or even DeMar or frankly even Rudy Gay was, and isn't as, unanimously adored by NBA fans. This guy is so put on for this city. He's such a hard worker. He's such an awesome basketball player if you actually know what you're watching. But he's not top 20 in all-star votes. So people won't support it. And I've often felt that this is a Canadian thing, that I think a lot of Canadians don't support something homegrown until Americans validate it. There's a lot of amazing Canadian bands that play every night to half empty, bars. And they're not cool until they end up on Letterman. They're not cool until they end up on the Tonight Show, and then everybody cares. There's a lot of people, that complain that a lot of Canadians feel like they have to go to the United States to be successful. But honestly, y'all are doing this to yourselves very often. You're doing this to yourselves. Y'all didn't give a shit about Vince Carter until ESPN started running his highlights, and you're like, oh my God, this guy's amazing. It's almost like Canada has a little brother problem where they're often looking to the United States to validate their own choices. And this is ingrained through decades and decades. Your parents, the media, cabal of like America is this like mega superpower country. And I grew up in America. I can say this as an American coming to Canada. I felt this immediately, that there is a status of like they have the cool things, we get the hand me downs. This little brother complex has to go away. You have to be willing to validate your own team. I go up on the panel every single day and make a fool out of myself because I think Scottie Barnes is better than fucking Paolo Banchero and anybody, and I don't fucking care. I believe that I am supporting my team regardless of how embarrassing it is in the setting of panelists who are, by the way, all American, pushing back against me, telling me I'm an idiot, telling me Scottie Barnes ain't shit, telling me Brandon Ingram is this, that, and whatever. Jamal Shed is nobody. And I'm like, nah, man, these guys are great. And that energy is missing in Canada. It's missing. Y'all don't have it enough. And it's almost like, I think that's a big problem too with this fan base. So this status thing. So counterfactual thinking. This isn't what it's supposed to look like, right? Fans consistently compare reality to imagined alternatives. If we just tanked, if we traded X earlier, if we had another Kawhi level swing, if we had traded for Giannis, right? Surprise success is dismissed because it doesn't align with fantasy rebuilds or fantasy contenders. I often say, well, if we had just tanked for Wemby, well, what if we had tanked for Wemby? And what if we'd fallen to 6th and then we drafted Grady Dick at 6th? Would I be happy then? You know what I mean? I still feel like we should have tanked for Wemby. But you get my point. I'm guilty of this too, and I know that. The present becomes unbearable because it doesn't match a hypothetical future or a hypothetical past, frankly. And fans live mentally in timelines that do not exist. Great way to be miserable. It's like, imagine for a second. I want you to imagine for a second. Now, I actually got to meet Rihanna when I think Rihanna was like 17 years old. So that was kind of funny. But imagine in that moment that I found out through the grapevine years later that Rihanna actually, when she met me, she told my friend, this did not happen, by the way. I just want to be clear. This never happened. But let's just say that at 17, Rihanna told her friend, that guy, that awkward guy who gave me a hug, I really love that guy. I could have married that guy. Now imagine me today with my expectation that I could have been with Rihanna. Do you know what I mean? Like imagine like fucking fairy godmother told you could have been with Rihanna. Like everybody would feel like crap. You would feel so miserable every day. You would think that would make you feel happy, but it wouldn't make you feel happy because now every single time you go on a date, it's not Rihanna. You know what I mean? Like that's what I'm saying. Like there's so many times like it's the same thing with investments, right? Like I often laugh at the fact that I sat across I dated this girl in 2016, and her first cousin was Vitalik Buterin, and Vitalik sat across from me and told me to invest in Ethereum, and then I didn't. And I've watched Ethereum climb and climb and climb, and I've watched Vitalik become like one of these like mega sensations, and I laugh about it. I don't sit here and cry that, oh my God, I didn't invest in Ethereum. I'm such an idiot. It's just funny to me. It's a funny story. Like you need to move on is what I'm saying. You know what I mean? Um, I I held Google stock and sold Google stock. I sold Tesla stock in 2013, dude. Like, like it's something about my life has taught me to just go with it. Go with it, like roll it over, days end, days begin. You know what I mean? Every single day is just like it's a new day. Uh so my closing point here, why success creates misery. Winning changes what fans believe they deserve, not what actually exists. The Raptors are doing something objectively rare. Young rosters aren't supposed to win, the Raptors are winning. Teams with contractual uncertainty like RJ Barrett, teams that have constant trade rumors like Emmanuel Quickly, teams that have mega injuries like Jakob Poeltl. These teams are supposed to be pretty miserable, but this team remains happy. We haven't heard any Shams breaks, Emmanuel quickly is unhappy in Toronto after getting benched last night. The Raptors are just a really, really cool team. If you're a fan of good basketball, you should love this team. I love this team. Uh, but that's not really what happens, right? Young team, winning record, player development, unexpected contributions across the lineup. 45th overall pick last year, turning into an awesome point guard. 19th overall pick, who's like 21 years old right now, and Jacoby Walter having an awesome 3-game stretch. But everyone's talking about Grady, right? Jamison Battle, being an undrafted guy. You just got Mo Bamba, who I think a lot of fans, probably are very excited about or have been excited about in years past. And you just signed him, and it's like a 7-footer. And it's just like, even I, in my video, was very negative about Mo Bamba because I didn't want people to get like overhyped, but also like in a part of a sense, like I want to be realistic because I don't want fans to like hate Mo Bamba for not being some hypothetical version of bullshit. And I think a lot of people, again, they go to the extremes, right? Like there was a Raptors Digest video of like, this is the best day of my life or some shit like that about Mo Bamba. And I didn't watch the video, but I'm assuming it goes on and on and on about how great Mo Bamba can be for the Raptors. And I think a lot of people maybe raise their expectations too high. I think it's okay to just accept reality. It's okay to accept that you just met Rihanna. She didn't secretly have a fantasy to marry you. It's okay. It's okay to admit that you met Vitalik and he told you to invest in Ethereum and you didn't. Totally fine. These are totally fine things. Um, Success reframes joy as validation, not experience. It's important to think about that. I'll repeat that. Success reframes joy as a validation, not experience. So if wins don't mean something later, fans struggle to enjoy them now. But I think you can enjoy the journey because the journey is important. You're watching a surprisingly good team play surprisingly good basketball, and you're watching an all-star, all-NBA jump for a guy who presumably should be a two-time all-star right now in Scottie Barnes. You may watch him make his first, all-defense team this year. He might even sneak into all-NBA conversations later on in the season. The Raptors might win a round. They might not. They might win 2 rounds, or they might fall into the play-in. Either way, this season is going to be a success. It is year 2 of a rebuild. It is important to realize the Raptors are stupidly young. They do have all of their picks going forward. And yeah, the Jakob Poeltl contract kind of sucks, but it's not the end of the world. He's not like Joel Embiid level big. It's not Paul George level washed. And there are a lot of teams out there that frankly are in a way worse situation than the Raptors. Are there teams that are in a better situation than the Raptors? Yes. But guess what? There were teams that were in a better situation than the Raptors in 2019 as well, right? The Sixers were in a better situation than the 2019 Raptors. Their stars weren't on their way out. Flash forward 3-4 years later, they haven't made a single conference finals. So I think if I can say anything with you, it's this. The Raptors didn't just win a championship in 2019. They accidentally turned their fan base into the Lakers fans without the history, without the market, without the legacy, without the fanfare. Just all the negatives of being a Laker fan without any of the positives of being a Laker fan. And let's not be that. So again, I like to think of myself as a bit of a thought leader in basketball, in the Raptor space. And I hope that this live has given you a lot to think about. I also know for a fact that no content creator in the basketball world, among the hundreds and thousands of people who create YouTube content every single day, I don't think a single person is going to create a video essay or a video live on the Diderot Effect as it pertains to toxic fandom. And I'm very proud of that. That's how I go to bed at night. I know that I contribute something to basketball that is unique to me because I'm able to think about things in a unique way. And I hope that you are able to use this live and hopefully things that have come up in your mind while you've been listening to this to improve your life, which is to say, don't compare your current relationship to your past glorious relationship because memories of memories and memories of memories is something that I clown all the time. Memories change all the time. The past is not as good as you remember it. The future is not as bleak as you think it will be. Every day is new. Start it new. Drink some coffee. Enjoy your life. I'll talk to you all later. Please hit like on this video if you got something out of it. Peace.